Well, I'll start off first. Through free agency, what we try to do is we acquired a lot of players, but the whole point of it was to be able to go into the draft with the most flexibility, like to be able to take the best available. So I thought we did that. We went out and attacked some positions in need. We took care of the defensive backs, fixed the offensive line as best we could. And so I'm excited where we're at. I think we did a lot of good things, and it really frees us up for the draft. And so we can go multiple ways with that first pick. So with that, I'll just open it up.
Do you feel like there are any realistic options at this point to trade with another team at quarterback based on what's potentially out there?
I haven't had any conversations recently with teams about that. I think we'll explore every option, whether it's the draft or trades. It's just the team's got to call you, and no one's called us, recently about that.
How much easier was it to go through the free agency process, having a somewhat full offseason? I mean, last year you got here pretty early, but having a scouting department in place, how much easier was that?
I think it was huge. Just, to be able to spend time with Coach, his staff, you learn your staff, who can you trust as scouts, who are the guys that you can really lean on to evaluate. And I thought we really did a good job. The addition of Dan Morgan really helped this year. Pat Stewart, all of the guys, all of our pro guys, they wrote a ton of reports. Last year, we didn't quite have the volume that we were comfortable with. And so it was a real emphasis going into it this year. Hey, let's beef up the scouting reports so we can make informed decisions. And it really allowed us to do a lot of different things during the draft, having that.
Last time we talked, you said Sam's got to get a lot better in order for him to kind of hold on to that spot. And you said you were going to be really aggressive in getting a quarterback.
Right.
Obviously, it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will. Who knows? Maybe you. But are you comfortable with him as your starter if that's where you've been?
Yeah, the whole key is bringing Sam along. We threw him in last year, kind of limited OTAs and everything that we had. We have to develop our own guys, and P.J. Walker as well. But I think we will look to add to the group as well. I think that's one emphasis going into this, whether it's through the draft, trade, whatever it may be, we're going to add to the room.
Are you closer to keeping Sam today than you were like 3 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, Sam's on the roster. As I sit here right now, he's on the roster. He's he's in the lead for that job. We want him to take it and run with it. But we're going to add a lot of competition to that room. The whole emphasis is to stabilize that quarterback position and play winning football, and that's what we're working towards.
Do you have a better idea of this quarterback class, having been out on the road with Matt this week?
Yeah, when you watch guys on tape, you can get a feel for how they play, how they move in the pocket. The important thing for pro days is, number one, you can judge their arm, like the velocity on the ball, their touch on the ball, and then number two, how do they interact with their teammates? Who's bringing the energy to the room, who's got the leadership style. And I thought we saw that out of all three guys we saw this week. And, people asked why we didn't go to Ritter's, pro day. We spent a lot of time with him at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine. We know he's got the leadership to him. So it's important for us to spend time on the road this week with those three guys that we did.
Did you get a chance to go to dinner with any of them? We kind of heard about Tomlin having dinner with Willis. Did you guys get a chance to?
We tried to with Corral, and then they're so booked up. We did a late flight, and we were able to fly into town. It was tough to get with them, but we did meet with them on the side. But we didn't do like a formal dinner.
Have you talked to Cam, and where do you guys sit?
Matt's talked to Cam. So I've reached out a couple times. Matt talked to him. The thing with Cam, it's got to be a fit for us, and it's got to be a fit for him just as well. I mean, he's looking for a certain opportunity, and the door is still open for us. We're very open to Cam. We'll see where it goes. He knows where we stand. I think he and Matt had a really good conversation, from my understanding. And so, we'll just see where it goes.
Does having one pick in the top 125 make you more inclined to go for an immediate impact player versus a project quarterback or something like that? How important is it to hit on that pick, knowing you only have the one in the top 125?
Yeah. That's why we did what we did in free agency, so we can have those options. You absolutely want to hit on that pick, and it's hard to pass on, whether it's a cornerstone left tackle, whether it's a pass rusher. But quarterbacks are hard to find, and sometimes you have to swing to take a shot at these guys. And if you miss, you can't stop swinging. You have to take a shot again. and it's the most important position on the field. So there's a lot of ways we can go. Quarterback is definitely one of them, and we do like these guys.
Do you feel like you all are done right now, as of right now in free agency, or are there other position groups you may still want to target?
I feel really good about where we're at as a roster right now. I thought we filled a lot of depth on the offensive line, linebacker, along the defensive line, especially in the defensive backfield. I think we're a much better roster right now than we were a year ago. We don't just have the frontline guys. We have depth, and that was the biggest thing going into this. And we have guys that are real pros and real leaders, and so I like where we're at. We do need to add a couple more spots. Quarterback being one. If we can add competition at left tackle, we'll do that as well, or as pass rusher. The thing about the offensive line is with Brady Christensen, he gives us so much versatility, and with Bozeman and Elfline, and then obviously Corbett. We were watching tape yesterday of the Rams, and Corbett was like standing out. We were really like happy to see him play that well. Obviously we liked him when we signed him, and then Taylor Moton, just that rock on the right side. So we like where we're at right now. We're excited about this year and where this is going to go with this team.
Can you expand upon what Bozeman and Corbett do well and why you thought they'd be upgrades and ideal fits here?
I think they're tough guys. I think they play square. Last year we were like the quicker, getting off the ball, attacking type. These guys can sit back and play square. They can build that wall up the middle. I think last year you saw, Sam and Cam had guys in their face way too often. I think these guys can sit in there, play square, and they give us like a toughness and a stoutness that we lacked last year.
And I know you said you want to add depth at tackle, but could you field a starting five offensive line group that you feel confident in right now?
I feel really good about the offensive line right now. And if we have a chance to add one more, we'll do that.
Scott, can you kind of take us through the Deshaun, your involvement in that, and why do you feel like that didn't work out, and then moving on from that?
Yeah, the thing about Deshaun, I know it's like a really sensitive matter. Really not going to get into that today, just out of respect for everyone involved. But that's where we're standing. I'm not going to get into it today.
Was it disappointing that it didn't work out?
You know what? It's probably more high profile than a lot of other times. There's a lot of opportunities that don't work out. It's just how we bounce back and what's next. And we're always focused about moving forward, not about what we lost.
Did you stand though on the vetting process, and did you all try to get in touch with any of the victims or the alleged victims?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into details today, but we did our work.
Scott, where would you rank Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis in last year's quarterback draft class?
I hate to really do that. I don't want to give up too much information prior to the draft because I think it kind of tips our hand. But we like these guys. We obviously like some guys last year as well, but we like this group.
What does the signing of Deontay Foreman do with Christian McCaffrey, how you guys are using him, and then likewise with bringing Xavier Woods for Jeremy Chinn?
I'm excited about what he brings. Last year we had 3 explosive backs, and I think we needed someone with a little more power, a little more size, and that'll complement us in Christian's run style. And when we need to finish games, when it's 3rd and 1, we can put the big body in and wear guys down and push the pile. So that was an emphasis going into it, is adding that bigger back. And when you go back and look at what Dante did last year, I think he fits that mold of exactly what we were looking for.
Xavier on the other side, kind of what does he allow you guys to do with Chinn?
He's really good from all the information that we have and everything that we know about him. He's really good on the back end communicating. And really last year, that's probably one of the missing links on that in the backfield. There's some communication issues. And I think Xavier is going to bring that. And I think if you do that, you can do a lot of different things with Chinn with his versatility. He can drop down, cover tight ends. He can play in the box. And adding Justin Burris, who we just signed back, I really like our safety group at this point.
The door's still open for Cam. Under what criteria, scenario could you see Cam on this roster?
I think it has to fit, like I said, both of us. It's not just us saying, hey, Cam, come on back. He's got to want to come back. He's got to like the role and the room and the situation. And so it's really just kind of a fit for both of us. And like I said, the door is open. Love to add someone with his leadership, his toughness. He brought so much to this team last year and stabilized us during a really hard time. And I think he's a really special person.
What would that role be if he did come back? Is it as a
backup?
I think anyone you bring in, you're competing. The best player is going to play.
Scott, you said last year you didn't want to get in the habit of doing a lot of restructuring.
Yeah.
You just didn't want to kick that can. You guys did a number of them again this year.
We did.
And why was that important? And it looks like it left you kind of behind the 8 ball towards next year's cap. Will that be prohibitive next year?
Well, I think there's 2 things that go into it. I think we expect the cap to go up next year. And then number 2 is the flexibility that it gives us this year. The ability to go out and plug all these holes that we had, build the depth on our roster, stabilize this offensive and defensive line, which I said, we're really excited about what we've done. And then during the season, it gives us the flexibility to make the trades. Guys will look to unload contracts midway through. And we were very active during the season, and we want that flexibility. And then if a player pops at some point, we have the room to fit him in this year. And we do hate to kick the can down the road, like you say. But this was a very kind of thought-out process of why we did this year.
Does it kind of go to the moves we saw you make last year, that every year you feel like your window's open, kind of, so to speak?
Our whole goal is to win the NFC South every year. We want to compete every year. And I think that's a mindset that we take. And I think we're, 2 steps closer this year, not just 1 step. I think we're 2 steps closer to, really competing for this NFC South. And so with all the guys that we brought in, I think we're right there. If we can get the quarterback position stabilized, we're going to be competing for it.
How do you assess an edge rusher with Hassan Reddick out?
Obviously, he got a lot of money. I'm happy for Hassan. I mean, he's a special player. We went back and got Marquise Haynes, and we're expecting Frankie Louvu and all those guys to step up and take that role. It's a good opportunity for those guys. And we've seen them do it in glimpses. And I think the more they play, the longer they play and develop their technique, the better they're going to be.
Scott, how much different will it be in terms of how you deploy that defensive front as opposed to just expecting those couple of guys to replace what?
I think Coach Snow will have a pretty good idea. I don't want to get too far into that. I'll let the coaches speak on that, but they're going to put them in a position where they can make plays and single them up and let them use their athleticism to win.
The edge rusher you talked about possibly adding, would that be potentially a starting caliber edge rusher y'all are looking for?
Yeah, it could be an edge rusher. It could be a 5-tech. To add one more body on that defensive line would be a significant upgrade.
Kind of a twofold question. Have you ever seen an offseason like this in the NFL? It's so crazy. And how tough is it to stay pat and be diligent and keep your discipline and not panic as you see guys moving everywhere?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the wilder off season, especially with the quarterbacks and all the big moves. I do think we were aggressive. I think we've acquired a lot of good players on this roster. But you do have to be disciplined. You have to do your work, and you have to not just be reactive and jump at something. You have to really know what the landscape is, what's happening next, who are the quarterbacks, who are these pass rushers that may go, and then make the smart decision at that time to pursue it. So you do need discipline.
The time you spent pursuing Watson impact, missing out on any players that you might have gone after?
No, they're independent of each other. And that's what having some of that cap room, those restructures allowed us to do. We could still do business over here while you went down that road.
Scott, how much cap room do you guys have left, and do you plan on using that before the draft, maybe waiting until training camp to see if any players are cut? How much do you have left, and how much do you want to use?
Well, without giving a specific number, it's still very fluid. I've told multiple guys in here, we hold money back. You may sit there and look at a number on Sport Track and all these things. We hold $9 million back for the draft picks. We hold several more million back for injuries and signing guys during the season. So we do have some money, and we're ready to make a move if something happens, and there's an opportunity out there.
You guys still talking to Gilmore?
Yeah, matter of fact, Dan Morgan and I and our wives were at dinner. Was it last Friday night? And Steph came up and met us and brought his son up, and we just had dinner and we talked, and the door's still open.
Was that a planned deal or just sort of?
No, it was just right up the street, and he had just gotten into town, and it was kind of a random meeting, and he came up and we talked, and it was a really good talk. And much like Cam, he's looking for the right situation, And, these guys are highly competitive guys. They want to start, they want to win, they want to compete at the highest level. But the door's open for us.
Scott, you said Sam is quote, in the lead for the starting job. What things are you guys, in particular, having him work on that you want to see him improve before next season?
Well, I think once Coach McAdoo gets with him, they've been talking by phone. We haven't spent a lot of time with him yet, like in classrooms or anything, just because you're not allowed at this point. A lot of it will be, speeding up the processing, and getting the ball out quick, eliminating some pre-snap, reads. You can do some things that way. Just making the right decision, just growing as a quarterback. And Ben has a history of developing quarterbacks, whether it's Green Bay in New York, and we plan on him doing that with Sam.
You may have said the answer to this, so I apologize if you did, but do you view any of the quarterbacks as day one starters in the draft, or do you think that they'll take some time to have them develop?
Yeah, without giving away too much draft information, I think all these guys are capable of being starters. I think once you get them, you develop a plan of how you want to deal with them. And we're starting that process now. Hey, what can we do? Ideally, every quarterback, no matter what it would be, whoever it is, would sit, a little while and learn. However, when it's time, and they'll let you know.
We saw some pretty hurt feelings among some other teams that pursued Watson. Did you have to kind of call Sam, or did Matt? How did those conversations go?
No, we haven't talked to Sam since then. I know he's been in the building. I know Ben's met with him and Matt's met with him. I didn't call him. This is just part of being a pro and part of the process. And Sam would be the first to tell you he needs to play good quality football, and that's what we're going to do with him. We're going to get him to that level.
What are your thoughts about the NFC South right now with all the movements in the quarterback in New Orleans? I guess Winston again, but coming back and the situation going on in Atlanta. What's your views right now of the NFC South?
I think obviously Tom Brady coming back threw a curveball at us. I think as long as we get our team right, we're going to compete for it. Like I said, our goal is to compete for the NFC South, and we're going to give it every shot we have. It doesn't matter what the other teams are doing. It's just we're going to focus on our team and getting ourselves right and get us in a position where we can win consistently.
Any quarterbacks in free agency or trade still out there that you guys would be interested in?
We're monitoring that. Nothing that we're going to do immediately.
Speaking of the NFC South, when you guys are all going after a high-profile player like Deshaun Watson, was that due for negotiations with you, ramp it up, make it, emphasize more trying to get that player? Was it due when you're competing within your division for a higher profile player like that?
You do see that. Like, some players are attracted, like, when you go after it. The one thing I've learned through this process of, talking to a lot of agents, they like the aggressiveness that we have. They like that we're going for it. They like the fact we have an owner that's aggressive. They know this is a great place to live and a place that should be very desirable and a place people want to be. So that's one thing. That's one of the feedback, or some of the feedback that I've gotten. But I'm excited, like I said, about where this is at.
Scott, how much more complicated is a GM's job now that there are multiple instances of players kind of dictating where they want to go and kind of almost that NBA model, people say? How much more difficult does that make what you do?
It does. What it makes you do is have a more personal relationship with the players. Be able to be on the front end of it and kind of be proactive about it. And, kind of, if there's an issue that's brewing, eliminate that, or at least try to communicate the best you can about what's going on. And that you are seeing that a lot more often. And that's why you see some of these bigger trades as well, and they can dictate where they want to go, especially if you have a no-trade clause. So you have to be smart about how you structure contracts. You have to be, like I said, really tuned in to the player, and you also have to have a lot of contacts around the NFL. If it does fall apart, you have to be able to be ready to move.
I think you said these agents have been impressed with the fact you all are going for it.
Right.
So how do you kind of weigh that as you look at a potential quarterback in the draft from a class that a lot of people don't think is real strong versus making a move on one of the few remaining veteran quarterbacks still out?
No, I think our whole focus is to get the whole team right. I think last year we came in, kind of reset that defense and built that defense. We added some pieces this year. We've rebuilt this offense. We have a much better offensive line. We've got the running backs. We've got the skill position at receiver. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where you can drop a quarterback in and you guys just take off. And that's what we're building towards. And I think we're a lot closer this year than we have been in the last year or two.
Are the guys you saw this week of that ability that you can just drop in like that?
I'd love to be able to say that. I just want to protect our team a little bit with the information about those specific players. But ideally, if you have a young guy that you can drop in there, that's the most cost-efficient way to do it. Surround them with veteran talent. Have a young quarterback on a cost-efficient contract. That's a great way to build a team. We did that in Seattle. That's probably the right way to build it. Draft and develop, and that'd be a really good plan for us moving forward. But we're open to all options.
Any more trips planned to visit college players or pro days or interview players in person in the next couple weeks?
We're going to bring in 30 players. And I'm sure we'll bring in, I know we're going to bring in more quarterbacks, more tackles. We're going to visit with them. This is a real ongoing process for us. This isn't like, okay, we went to a pro day, we did the tape, we visited with them, we're shutting the book, we can make a decision. We're going to bring this all the way up to the draft. We're going to keep learning about these guys, who they are, how they process, how they think, what's their makeup, and that's what we're going to do for the next month or so.
From the standpoint of building the complete team you're talking about, was it a good thing then not to get Watson from that standpoint?
That's a good question. I think we would have done a lot of these moves with him, had we acquired him. Like I said, we were operating independently, so a lot of these moves would have taken place. The one thing I tell you what, two of the things I was really excited about is bringing back, DJ and signing Dante. Like that's what we want to do as an organization: is draft, develop, and then if they do it the right way and they come out and they perform, we're going to reward them and keep them here. These are the guys that we want in the building. I think there's a history of that. Prior to me ever being here, this is, Mr. Tepper and Matt Rule when they did it with McCaffrey, and we've done it. We did it last year. We did it this year. We'd love to be able to do that going forward. As long as we manage the money right, we want to take care of our own guys.
We'll do a couple more. Is Brian Burns kind of like the next thing of that ilk, or is there just more on the table as far as that goes?
Yeah, there's always more on the table, but Brian would be one of those priorities, like moving forward. He's the guy that's come out and produced for us. I really like the kind of the leader he's becoming and the man he is. So he would be, one of those guys that we'll definitely try to work on.
Is Glenn to pick up a fifth-year option on him?
Yeah.
Scott, now that you've had a year to team build with Matt, what have you learned about the way Matt wants to build a team and how that aligns with your vision of doing so?
Yeah, I think we're very aligned. We believe in building it up front. We want to build it on defense, but offense and defensive line, and obviously quarterback is a part of this. But he's very aggressive, and I think that fits my nature as well. We're aggressive as a staff, as an organization. That's our philosophy. And I think a lot of that comes down from the top. It's Mr. and Mrs. Tepper. Like, let's go. Let's build this the right way, and let's be aggressive about how we do this.
You're not quite there yet. Kind of saw this happen in Seattle, and you just mentioned it. Like building a team is easiest and best with a young quarterback because you're on his rookie salary. But there's also like 12 quarterbacks in the NFL that are really good, and therefore they're now commanding like $500 million. So how do you get a quarterback, keep a quarterback, pay a quarterback, and then build a roster around him? And what's that philosophy for you guys?
I think every time, like if you draft one and they're there for 5 years, then all of a sudden you're paying them, right now, what is it, $40-50 million a year? That's a huge amount of your cap space. So where are you going to take from to build your team? And so you have to be very strategic about who you sign back. And, there's obviously value of position. Like you want to keep your left tackle, you want to keep your pass rushers. But there are times you have to go cost efficient on certain positions. And, I think some teams, you can take from, like, say, guard or linebacker, but you have to be smart about how you spend your money. And it really does limit what you can do. So obviously that rookie quarterback is huge.
Is that good or bad for the sport?
It's hard for me. I don't know if it's good. You know, it's good for the players. You reward the guys who perform for you. That's a hard question to answer. You know, I'd like to say it's hard, but that's a tough one because it just eats up so much of your cap space and eats up so many resources. It's hard to do. All right, thank you.